Welcome back to PI Planning Therapy. All that's good in the world of therapy. You will feel whole. Your PI planning will be greater. You will just feel like such a wonderful person after this therapy. It's not the drugs, it's me. Anyway, what we said we were going to talk about last week was the teams are complaining it takes too long to kick off. PI Planning Therapy, where you come for all your help with PI planning. It's the best therapy you'll ever get, better than drugs. And I made some stupid statement about 2.5 hours. No, it's 5. 5 hours of presentations, including lunch, I suppose, before the team get to do any planning in planning. How long is planning? Let's see. Planning is 20 hours. That means we're spending, my math's not so good, 25% of our time listening to the great and the good talk about stuff, which is understandable if we were here to talk about that stuff, if that's what our job was, but we're here to do planning. And that's part of the reason your teams get frustrated. They're excited by planning. They're ready to plan. This may be their second or third PIs, or even their first, they're going, plan, 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 plan. And then we sit them down in front of PowerPoint, and we know the glory of PowerPoint for 4 hours, 4.5 hours, or whatever it happens to be. So this is probably, it's not quite the only thing. But when I launch new arts, this is one thing I really challenge and say, generally, I wouldn't touch PI planning agenda the first time out. We need to know how to do something well before we fiddle with it, before we tweak it, before we do our relentless improvement. But this is the one that I would go for. The teams are there to plan. If we're not spending 80 to 90% minimum of our time on planning and getting better plans and reviewing those plans and making those plans so good the team flies through the PI, there is something wrong in my opinion. And so what I normally do is I try to trim that back down. Let's see if we can cut it in half. Let's see if we can get down to 2 hours or less. But what about all that content? The architects don't want to stand there and talk for an hour about nothing. They are adding value, and they really are. That's no joke. They are adding value. But we have socialization sessions before these things happen. And in those socialization sessions, they actually should be presenting the architectural changes that they want. Socialization is not just about business features, and it's not just about functional sort of enhancement features like enablers. Socialization is about sharing everything that the teams need to know in order to plan and execute the next PI. So if you use those socialization sessions well, all of that key information from the architects has already been presented in depth over 3 or 4 socialization sessions. The teams understand it. The teams will understand what features they're probably going to be working on. That might change when you get to the final planning, but they will not be surprised by what they see. They may have presented 10 things and you're actually only going to work on 8, which is fine. So if you've actually used your socialization properly and you've presented, this is the scope we believe you're going to be working on, here is the information about that, this is what the architectural impacts are, here are the software engineering ways of working that we're going to change, here are the changes to the DevOps processes, here are the changes to the planning process we want to use, here are the changes to the definition of done. If all of this stuff is shared, socialized, talked about, adjusted, before they go into planning, you don't have to burn that time. And it really is burning, because what happens is they get halfway through the hour-long session from the business, they disconnect because they don't need to know an hour's worth of information about the business. I'm sorry, your business, you're really, really important, but people tend to disconnect after 15 to 20 minutes anyway, and unless you've got a singing, dancing light show, they're going to disconnect. So on that light, what we want to do is be changing topics every 20 to 30 minutes. So when the business comes in, they need to come in hard hitting. It's not an elevator pitch, but let's call it a planning pitch. You got 30 minutes. Your aim is to engage the teams, tell them how fantastic they are, Tell them how important it is to you that they're doing this, and what the key things that they're working on this PI are for you, and what it means for you. That's 30 minutes along with some business context. If you can't do that, maybe you need some coaching. I know some agile coaches who can help you. And it's the same with the architects. They don't need to go into all the depths of everything. They've already presented it. They want to hit the highlights, the interesting bits, the challenging bits, remind people how much fun this is going to be, how important this is, how much benefit they're going to get from these architectural changes, or these DevOps changes, or these definition of done changes, or these working agreement changes. We're making this change to make your life better. We've enhanced the CI/CD platform so it automatically documents blah, blah, blah. You don't need to go into the depths of how that works or how that's done. You've done that before, but it reminds them it's there. We've changed the definition of done, so it's going to be a little bit more work, but what it means is that the automated documentation works, for example. But you get that short and sweet. You get in and out in 2 hours, 2.5 hours, half the time. That means if you're starting at 8 o'clock, by 10:30, they're planning. And what will happen is they will still complain because they came here to planning. It's called PR planning. But what it is you've reinforced the key points, you've engaged energy from the business, you've got focus from the product, you know architecturally where you're going, and they can get out there and start their planning earlier. Another good thing about that is if the sooner they start planning, the sooner they finish it. And the more energy they have, and everybody has more energy in the morning. It's not my fault I didn't design this human biology, but the first 4 hours after you wake up are the time where you actually are able to solve your biggest problems and you have the most energy. There's a great book called When, which will give you some a bit of an explanation about how that works. There is some time in the afternoon, but the focus is the morning. So if you can tighten that up and make sure that as an RTE or as a coach or as a PM, you're coaching the business, you're coaching the people who are talking, they're going to be able to get it down, they're going to get it punchy, and the teams will remain engaged. So that's how you reduce the amount, if not eliminate, the complaints from the teams about why do we lose so much time in these presentations before we start planning. And I'm sorry, it's a real complaint. 25% is too much. Way too much. We're here to plan, create great plans. I'd rather have them complaining about the quality of the reviews and that we're spending too much time reviewing the plans and we're spending too much time mitigating risks, because that's what's planning about, rather than saying we've got too much time with business presentations or architecture presentations. So that's what's to focus on. If you want to shorten that up, if you want to reduce those complaints, if you want to get the engine started quickly, get those presentations done quickly. There are a few other techniques, so just put some comments below. I can answer you in there and tell you what the other techniques are. And believe it or not, it is actually possible to start your planning immediately. Yes. The bell goes ding, it's 8 o'clock, we start planning straight away. It is possible, I've seen it done, and I've been fortunate enough to be in a situation where I've made it happen. So if you want to know about that, put a comment below. So that's today's episode. So have fun, have a great time. See you next time. And how much our STs hurt us and were mean to us, and they didn't give us pizza when we wanted to.